Have you ever felt like you were living in a nightmare, but fully awake, stone cold sober and holding the invoice in your hand? That's how I felt when I got the first letter. It was plain. White envelope, no stamp, just tucked under my front door like someone didn't want to leave fingerprints. Inside it was a single sheet of paper, and on that paper, in perfect Solus Times New Roman, it said, "You are in violation of Covenant 14B regarding unauthorized structures. Fine, $500 per day, effective immediately." At first I thought it had to be a mistake, a misprint. Maybe they meant to send it to someone else. But as I kept reading, the knot in my stomach started to tighten. My name was printed at the top, my address. The violation: construction of a non-approved perimeter fence on the west side of my lot. The thing is, I never built a fence. I didn't even want a fence. This is the story of how my HOA, people I had never even met, tried to financially destroy me over a fence I didn't build, didn't want, and didn't authorize, and how they almost succeeded. Moved into my house in early spring, right after closing on what I thought was going to be my dream home. It's a modest single story in a quiet cul-de-sac in a planned community about 40 minutes outside of Dallas. First home I ever bought, saved for years, scrimped every penny. I was proud of it. I knew there was an HOA. I wasn't thrilled about it, but it seemed manageable. The rules were mostly cosmetic: lawn maintenance, trash bins out of sight, no loud parties. I figured, fine, I mow my lawn and keep to myself anyway. The HOA dues were $130 a month. Not cheap, but not crazy. The documents they gave me at closing were thick and full of legalese, but I skimmed it. Nothing jumped out as insane, boy was I wrong. About 6 months in, I noticed a new wooden fence going up on the side of my lot. It was a standard 6-foot privacy fence, cedar panels, nothing fancy. At first I thought it was my neighbor's. It was right along the property line, and I assumed they were putting it up to keep their dogs in. I even waved to the guys building it one afternoon and asked them, "How long do you think it'll take?" One of them shrugged and said, "We should be done by the weekend." That was it. Then came the letter, $500 per day, retroactive from the day they claimed the fence was first observed. I called the number at the bottom of the letter immediately, got voicemail, left a message, no reply. Next day, same letter, different date. Another $500. I emailed the HOA office. No response. Finally, I took time off work and went to their office in person. It's a small beige building behind the community pool. Inside, it's eerily quiet, like a dentist's office that forgot how to smile. I walked up to the front desk and explained the situation. The woman there, her name was Karen, I'm not making that up, typed my name into her computer and gave me this look, a mix of pity and bureaucracy. "Oh," she said, "you're the fence guy." I explained again that I didn't build the fence, that I hadn't filed any construction requests, that I assumed it was my neighbor's. She nodded slowly and said, "But the fence is on your property, partially, according to our inspection." I stared at her. "So because someone else built a fence that overlaps maybe 6 inches onto my side of the property line, I'm getting fined $500 a day?" She said, "It's in the covenants, unauthorized structures, your responsibility." I asked her what I was supposed to do. She smiled, actually smiled, and said, "You can submit a retroactive architectural modification form and request forgiveness. But I'll warn you, the board rarely grants forgiveness for non-compliance." So I did it. I went home, printed the form, filled it out, took pictures, highlighted the part where the fence clearly extended from my neighbor's side, and submitted everything. A week passed. Then 2. The fines kept coming. By the end of the month, the total was $5,500. I called a lawyer, real estate attorney. He took one look at the HOA documents and said, "They're using the foreclosure clause." Apparently buried deep in the agreement I signed, probably page 67 of that legal brick I skimmed, was a clause that allowed the HOA to place a lien on your property and initiate foreclosure proceedings if fines go unpaid for 90 days. That's right. Over a fence I didn't build, I could lose my home. My lawyer sent them a letter, certified mail, challenging the fine, stating the facts, requesting mediation. Their response? A copy of my property plat, highlighted in yellow, showing the fence intersecting my boundary by approximately 14 inches. A note scribbled in the margin read, "Violation confirmed." At this point, I was stuck. The neighbor, who I hadn't really spoken to much before, was an older guy named Tom. He kept to himself. I knocked on his door and asked if we could talk. When I told him what was happening, he actually looked surprised. I hired a guy to put up a fence. I told him to follow the property line. I asked if he had a survey. He didn't, but he agreed to split the cost of a new one. We brought out a licensed surveyor who confirmed the truth. The fence did encroach on my lot, barely. Just over a foot. I thought this would be my salvation. I submitted the survey, an affidavit from Tom saying he authorized the build, and a proposal for removal of the encroaching portion. The HOA's response? Modification denied. Violation persists. Fines continue. That was when I snapped. I wrote letters. I posted in the community Facebook group. I got neighbors involved. Turns out I wasn't the only one being targeted. There was the single mum down the street who got fined for having non-regulation holiday lights. An older couple who got hit with daily penalties for having excessive potted plants. A guy 2 blocks over was being fined for a garage door that clashed with the color scheme, even though it was the original door that came with the house. I started organizing meetings. We gathered testimonies. I even created a website, myhomethererule.com, but the HOA wasn't backing down. In fact, things got worse. About 2 months in, I got another letter. This one was titled, "Notice of Intent to Lien." They had filed paperwork with the county. I now officially owed over $42,000 in fines, fees, and administrative penalties. I was panicking, losing sleep. My credit score started dropping because they reported it to collections, and that's when the twist came. My lawyer called and said, "You need to see this." He'd pulled the original permitting paperwork for the community, old zoning documents from when the subdivision was first built, and buried in those documents was a clause that designated the area where the fence was built as a shared utility easement. What does that mean? It means no one was allowed to build there. Not me, not Tom, not the HOA, not anyone. So not only was I being fined for a fence I didn't build, I was being fined for a fence that was illegally placed in a no-build zone to begin with. We sent this information to the county, then to the HOA, then I went public with everything. Local news picked it up. Homeowner faces foreclosure over fence he didn't build. Suddenly the tone changed. I got a call, not an email, not a letter, from the HOA president. First time I'd ever heard his voice. He wanted to discuss a resolution. I recorded the call. He offered to waive the fines as a courtesy, if I would agree not to pursue legal action. I told him where he could put that offer. Instead, I sued. I filed a lawsuit for harassment, wrongful fines, attempted illegal foreclosure, and violation of the Texas Property Code. They settled quietly, without admitting fault. Part of the agreement was that they would cover all legal costs, remove the lien, and dissolve the fines. They also agreed to vote on revising the covenant language to prevent this from happening again. Tom and I split the cost to remove the section of fence and rebuild it correctly, this time outside the easement. Total cost? Under $100 total cost the HOA tried to charge me. $8,500. It was never about the fence, not really. It was about control. The HOA used their power not to protect the community, but to police it, to punish anyone who didn't conform, to enforce rules. They barely understood themselves, and the scariest part, they almost got away with it. I was lucky. I had a good lawyer, I had the time and means to fight back. But a lot of people don't, and the HOAs know that. They know you won't read the documents, they know you'll be scared of the legal fees. They count on your silence. So if this has happened to you, or if you're living under the thumb of an HOA that abuses its power, speak up, document everything, get your surveys, know your rights, and don't let them bully you out of your home, because it might be your house, but they'll act like it's theirs. Thanks for listening to my story. If you've ever had a run-in with an HOA, or know someone who has, drop your experience in the comments below. I read every one of them, seriously, and maybe, just maybe, we can start holding these organizations accountable together. Until next time, stay informed, stay vigilant, and remember, it's your home, not theirs.